Good morning. We are in the office of the lovely Alisha.
Hi.
And this is her office for 3 Moons Midwifery, correct?
Yes.
So tell me, how long have you been in this space?
Yeah, so I moved into this space in Issaquah at February of 2016. So it's been 2 years this month. And it was a lot of fun because I got to decorate it the way I wanted to. The mural behind you, my daughter painted. That was her vision. And
Got the sun coming out.
Yes. And I really, really like this space. I share it with a pediatric practice, so we get to do a lot of good referring back and forth, and we get to hear kids playing all day long, which is lovely.
Wonderful. And what did you do before you were here?
Good question. So I started my women's health and midwifery practice in North Bend. I shared space with another practitioner and then opened up this space and did both spaces for a handful of months before I realized that was too much of a challenge. And then moved it here. And then prior to working as a women's health practitioner and midwife, I was a labor and delivery nurse for several years, and before that I was a birth doula, among other things. I taught prenatal yoga, lactation education, childbirth education, and all that gathering birth wisdom stuff, as I like to call it.
Yeah, so you've been in the sort of, can you call it a birth industry?
Yeah, we call it birth professionals, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, for quite a few years, 20 something now, I think.
And I guess what made you want to be an entrepreneur, or was there sort of no other choices in midwife, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I've always been kind of a big picture thinker and a leader in a lot of ways. So it's a much longer discussion than we have time for now, but as many of you have probably experienced, our healthcare system can be pretty frustrating here in the United States, and in particular for, women's health, contraception, family planning, birth choices. It's a challenge to get your needs met as an individual rather than just part of a system.
Yeah.
So
Stamp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I really wanted to be able to provide services to meet the needs of individuals, and in order to do that, I needed to kind of create my own system. So that is really why I decided to open my own practice, so that I wouldn't have a lot of other folks dictating what I could do.
Yeah, because you saw a need
Yes.
that wasn't being met that you wanted to meet, and
Yes.
there wasn't another avenue.
Absolutely, yeah. And there are, in Washington State, there are a lot of licensed or certified professional midwives who are providing out-of-hospital care, and the midwifery, the piece of midwifery that is the birth and childbirth and immediate postpartum piece. But there are not a lot of us who are doing the nurse midwives doing the whole healthcare, puberty through end of life for folks, which is, what I dream of, being the provider that you get to see when you're a teen and then you get to have your babies with and then retire with later. Although a lot of people aren't going to stay in the area that long. That's my vision of myself.
Right, like a lifetime, that you have a relationship and that you're going with the person, so you're not just numbers. It's like, I remember when you had that case of whatever it was.
Yes, the relationship building is a huge piece for me, and in fact, one of the terms I use for my practice is relationship-based care, because I get to spend an hour with folks where most folks go to their gynecology visits and get maybe 15, maybe 30 minutes, but we get a lot of time to build that, especially for the annual exam type folks, when we're only seeing them maybe once a year.
Yeah.
It's really important to have that time, because we're much more than the symptoms that our bodies give us. We are products of our environment and our genetics and our desires.
Yeah. And I come from physical therapy, and a lot of times we were told, you're the ones that are going to hear about stuff, because people will go to their doctor and get the 10-minute visit.
Yes.
and then they'll forget to tell them, or, you know, and so when we see people time and time again, and we're chatting while we're doing exercises or doing a manual technique, that we're like, oh yeah, and this, you know.
Yes.
And so just because we're there and we have the time and people, and then we have the relationship, so it's nice you're building a relationship on your end, so you don't have to have it referred back.
Yes, but I do love to collaborate with other providers so that I can get even more of a picture, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot that I can do, and there's a lot of listening that I do, but, you know, I'm not a physical therapist. Yeah. And I'm not a chiropractor, and, you know, in an ideal situation, folks are able to access all of those different realms of healing and health to get their needs met.
Yes. Well, what have you learned as far as the entrepreneurial aspect? Because this is, you know, it's a medical business, and it's an office, and there's a lot of, you know, legal things that have to be in place to be a medical business. But so it's a little different than some of the other businesses that I've covered. But what can you tell us just about your experience in the entrepreneurial world, and what have you learned from that, and what can you share with us about that?
That's a good question. So I knew what I wanted to do, and didn't have a lot of the business acumen and understanding behind me. So I kind of just dove in and did it as I needed to. So, you know, I learned a lot along the way, and a lot I'm continuing to learn. But what things I wished I had done earlier are, you know, had a bookkeeper and a biller from the very beginning, because I did lose a lot of money at the beginning that I didn't know that I wasn't going to get if I didn't do things right. And, you know, I didn't have a business plan when I opened, because I had my own funding set aside for my opening. So, and that's something I'm working on now, so it would have been nice to have that. So I think a lot of the planning that I did was very helpful, but I could have done quite a bit more planning on the, you know, the organizational stuff ahead of time.
But sometimes those things, you know, like, they just seem too daunting, and you wouldn't, you know, if you had taken it to, like, looked at that, you might have just thrown it all in the trash, right? Like,
yeah, that's possible.
I like that you just, like, dive.
Yes.
Like, I have a vision, and I'm diving in, and we're going to figure out as we go.
Yeah. Well,
like,
and
that's a possible
true.
avenue.
It is. You can't do it. And I think, you know, if you have skills and knowledge and, you know, a good support base around you, that, you know, your team is, you know, telling you, you know, you've got this, that's really helpful. Like, my husband is wonderful, and you know, he's, you know, supporting us so that we have a roof over our heads and food in our mouths, so that this could grow and be able to participate in the family as well. So I've been very lucky to have that. It would be a much different situation if I didn't.
Yeah.
So that's a real blessing, because I had that, you know, that stuff taken care of.
Right. So when those bills that were billed wrong, or, you know, not ideally, when they slipped through the cracks, that you didn't have to close up shop.
Yeah. Well, and I did, you know, knowing the little I did know about business going into it, I didn't expect to be, you know, in the black until, you know, about between years 3 and 5. So, but it was almost the second year of my practice when I was bringing in enough where I could be paying off my student loans and, you know, paying my business's bills. So that I felt very successful when I hit that place.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That was a good goal.
So what do you have coming up? I know you have some events or some workshops or something that's coming up. So tell us about that.
So recently I started working with Marcelle Allen of Dreamosity, and she's helped me on Facebook create a 3 Moons community, which the goal behind that, it's a closed Facebook group, but what it's designed for is where women can come and share their own knowledge about what it's like to be in a woman's body. And then what I will be doing is on the full moon and the new moon of every month, we'll be doing a Facebook Live where I will share information pertaining to, you know, women's health and the natural rhythms and cycles that our bodies go through. And using the moon as a metaphor, but also the lunar cycles have a really a physical impact on our bodies. So we'll be learning about that too. So I'm excited to share.
Wonderful. So maybe she can share the link if anybody's interested. If you have any questions, Alisha will go back and answer your questions. Maybe not technical medical questions.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe that's not legal, but in general questions.
Yes.
Please put them in the comments. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful. I'm going to zoom in so I can reach